For years, everyone thought that Oprah's sit-down with Meghan Markle was the moment when truth finally screamed louder than the palace walls. The garden was glowing, Oprah's voice calm, Meghan's face flawless, and the world believed, finally, that every secret was about to be told. But oh no. Behind that calm California sunshine, something happened that no one ever saw on camera. Something that made Oprah herself later whisper to her inner circle, "I should have never trusted her." It didn't start with anger or drama. It started with a whisper. Someone from the production team muttered it quietly, and that one sentence spread like perfume in the air. Nobody explained it. Nobody dared. Until Oprah's own team began talking, years later, in hushed voices, behind closed doors. And what they described was a picture Oprah never shared with the world. A moment so strange, it changed how she looked at that entire interview sitting before millions. It began before the cameras even rolled. Oprah's team was adjusting the lights, the mics, the camera angles. Meghan sat gracefully in her crisp dress, Harry beside her, the perfect royal-turned Hollywood couple. Everything looked normal, until someone noticed a movement, small and quick, under Meghan's outfit. Not a sound, not a word. A shift. Sharp enough that everyone nearby froze. They'd seen pregnant women before. They knew how a belly naturally rests, heavy and still. But this looked off. Too sharp, too sudden, too deliberate. A quiet buzz began among the crew. Not loud gossip, just that uneasy murmuring you can't ignore. Someone looked at someone else, someone whispered to the next, and within minutes, Oprah could feel it too. The tension, the awkward stillness. And Oprah being Oprah, she instantly knew something was up. She planned to ask. Of course she did. That's what she's famous for. Asking the question everyone else is afraid of. She even rehearsed in her mind how to phrase it gently, with that trademark calm tone that disarms even the toughest guests. But before she could, before the first question ever left her lips, Meghan leaned in. Calm, controlled, like a woman who knows exactly how to steer the moment. She looked Oprah straight in the eye and said quietly, "It's not the right time." Just that. No details, no smile. Just that soft warning. And it stopped Oprah cold. The cameras rolled. The show began. And the question Oprah wanted to ask died right there, buried under that polite California sunshine. That was the first sign something about this interview was off. Deeper, darker, and quieter than anyone imagined. To really understand it, you have to rewind. Go back before Montecito, before Oprah's wooden chair, before the glowing garden. Go back to Meghan's first pregnancy, when the whispers truly began. From the very start, people noticed things. Meghan's baby bump didn't look consistent. Sometimes high, sometimes low. Sometimes round, sometimes oddly flat. Some days she looked ready to give birth, and 2 days later she looked barely pregnant. It wasn't headline material, not at first, but people noticed. There were photos where her belly seemed to fold when she bent down, sharper than nature allows. Videos where it shifted when she crouched, almost like it had its own motion. And in a few moments caught by paparazzi, it even looked as if the bump inflated and deflated between appearances. Now, everyone knows outfits and angles can play tricks, but these changes weren't soft illusions. They were abrupt, mechanical even. Still, no one dared to say it out loud. Not until that Oprah interview was announced. Because if anyone was going to ask the question, it was Oprah Winfrey. The woman who had gotten confessions out of Hollywood's biggest stars. Surely she'd go there. Surely she'd ask what millions whispered online. But then came that pre-show moment, the quiet warning. It's not the right time. And Oprah, sensing the risk of igniting a royal firestorm, backed off. By the time the interview aired, Meghan's secret stayed locked behind those serene smiles. The public never heard the question that could have changed everything. Now, here's where it gets even more curious. Back in May 2019, the palace made a blunder. One so strange, people still scratch their heads. On May 6th, reporters got the message. The Duchess has gone into labor. The press went wild, setting up cameras, going live, waiting for the next update. But only a short while later, another announcement dropped. Archie has been born. Wait, what? Not just moments ago, but hours before that first message even went out. How could the palace announce labor after the baby was already born? It wasn't a typo. It wasn't a small slip. It was a total timeline collapse, something that had never happened before in royal history. Some brushed it off as a simple communication error. Others whispered it was a cover-up, a pre-planned sequence meant to control what the world saw and when. But the seed of doubt had been planted. If the palace could bend the truth about timing, what else could be twisted, hidden, or reshaped? And then came the presentation, or rather, the lack of one. Every royal baby had that famous hospital moment. Proud parents on the steps, flashing cameras, the first glimpse of the newborn. Diana did it. Kate did it. Every royal mother did it. But not Meghan. There was no hospital photo, no crowd, no press, no public joy. Instead, Meghan and Harry chose privacy. Archie's first photo came days later, deep inside Windsor Castle, under heavy stone walls, guarded and staged. The baby's face barely visible, the parents composed but distant. To some, it looked modern and refreshing. To others, suspicious. Another piece of the puzzle that didn't quite fit. Why no hospital steps? Why delay the announcement? Why the secrecy? The questions multiplied, the answers never came. By then, Meghan and Harry were already being labeled as the private royals, the ones who broke tradition and rewrote every rule. But to those paying closer attention, it wasn't just rebellion, it was control. A calculated decision to filter every piece of their story. And that's why, when Oprah's garden interview happened 2 years later, it wasn't just another sit-down. It was the showdown. The moment everyone thought would finally reveal what had been hidden behind those stone walls. When the interview started, the world held its breath. The garden was beautiful, the sun gentle, the air full of expectation. But there was electricity underneath, tension. And then, out of nowhere, Meghan dropped a bombshell that would change everything. She said there were conversations within the royal family about how dark Archie's skin might be before he was born. The world stopped. Oprah's eyes widened. You could see her body lean forward. And with that famous, calm voice, she said, "What? Who is having that conversation with you?" Meghan refused to name anyone. She said it would be too damaging. That moment, that one exchange, overshadowed everything else. It set the internet on fire, sparked global outrage, and became one of the most talked about royal statements ever broadcast. Within days, Buckingham Palace released a statement, short, icy, and sharp. Some recollections may vary. 4 words that split the world in half. It was the palace's way of saying, we're not confirming anything, but we're not taking blame either. And just like that, 2 versions of the truth began running parallel. Meghan's version and the palace's version. Both powerful, both unyielding, both incomplete. But what nobody noticed was that the other question, the one Oprah never asked, the one Meghan warned her against, was still sitting in silence, buried beneath the noise. Fast forward to 2023. Prince Harry began promoting his memoir, Spare. He sat down with Tom Bradby on ITV and later with CBS in America. The tone was softer this time, reflective, almost weary. And then Harry said something that stunned everyone. "I never said my family were racist." Wait, what? The world remembered the Oprah interview, the tension, the claims, the emotion. And now Harry was calling it unconscious bias, not racism. He said the conversation Meghan described had been misunderstood, that it wasn't malicious, just institutional blindness. Interviewers pushed him. Then why didn't you correct the record in 2021? Harry didn't have an answer. He just looked tired. That one statement reopened the entire wound. Two stories, two truths, now tangled beyond recognition. The world that once believed the Oprah interview was gospel began questioning everything. And behind the scenes, the same insiders who'd once whispered about that movement under Meghan's dress began talking again. Rumors resurfaced about February 2019, the famous baby shower in New York City's Mark Hotel. It was glamorous, star-studded. Serena Williams, Amal Clooney, Gayle King, the elite circle. Every shot looked perfect, but the whispers were ugly. Some insiders claimed that during a private evening, Meghan allegedly left something behind in her suite. Not her purse, not her jewelry, her bump. Yes, that's what they whispered. That the bump was a prosthetic. That the pregnancy everyone saw was staged. It never made the tabloids, too risky, too explosive. But inside the gossip circles, the rumor never died. And when you tie that rumor back to Oprah's story, the strange movement, the soft warning, the unasked question, suddenly it all forms a quiet pattern. By the end of that Montecito interview, people believed they had watched a complete story. Love, loss, and royal cruelty wrapped in an emotional hour. But they didn't realize that the most revealing moment had happened before the cameras started rolling. It was Oprah's hesitation, Meghan's calm but commanding gaze. That sentence, "It's not the right time." The silent pause that said everything and nothing at once. That's the cruel magic of silence. It never disappears. It waits, in the gaps between what was said and what wasn't, in the tension between what Oprah wanted to ask and what Meghan forbade her to, in the contradictions between palace statements, interviews, and quiet whispers. The royal records still say Archie was born at Portland Hospital. Meghan never addressed the moon bump theories. Harry changed his story. The palace stood by "some recollections may vary." And Oprah, the woman who has built her empire asking the world's toughest questions, stayed silent. And that's where this story ends, not with an answer, but with an echo. Because in royal history, it's never the loud scandals that haunt forever. It's the quietest moments, the half-truths, the gentle warnings, the stories never told. And somewhere in that Montecito garden, beneath the California sun, between one woman who built her empire on truth and another who mastered the art of mystery, that silence still waits. And even now, years later, that silence still feels heavier than any royal crown. Oprah never clarified what truly happened that day, not on TV, not in interviews, not even in the tiny hints she sometimes drops during conversations about truth and perception. But those who were there, the quiet people behind the cameras, say they could feel something unspoken between the two women. A kind of power exchange that wasn't just about questions and answers. It was about control. Because Meghan knew exactly what she was doing. Every look, every pause, every perfectly measured sentence, she played it like a master. Oprah, for once, wasn't the one steering the conversation. She was being steered. And that's what haunted her later. That feeling that she, the woman who had faced presidents and billionaires, had been outmaneuvered by a duchess who knew how to hide truth behind elegance. So when people say Oprah broke her silence, they don't realize the truth. Her silence itself was the statement. Because silence in her world is never empty. It's heavy. It's chosen. And sometimes it screams louder than words ever could. That's why, even now, the world still listens, waiting for Oprah to finally whisper what she never said.